Hi everyone, this is Lomi, and today I'm working on accessories for Firal's outfit, starting with a couple pretties for her hair. These are really easy to make, but can add a lot to a doll's wig. I'm using bobby pins and plastic pearls, and some of these little rhinestones and metal settings. The settings have holes in the base, which helps connect them to the pins. I pulled these off a broken bracelet that came from Michael's. So for the pins with the plastic pearls, there's really not much to this. The holes on the beads are big enough that they can just slide right on the pin, or most of the pins anyway, and then they stay up at the top on their own. With the rhinestones, it's a bit tougher because they won't fit on over the tips. So for these I cut the tips off to slide the crystals on. These are much too long to use on a doll as they are though, so I'll cut them down until they're just about an inch long. Then we'll refinish the cut-ins by dipping them into glue. This way they won't scratch my doll's head. I use E6000 glue for this. I also dip the top of the pin and slide the rhinestone setting back up onto the glue to make sure it has a sturdy hold. Next up is the gem for her belt. I'll be using these bezel settings because they have loops on both sides, so I can sew this onto the belt. I make the gem out of polymer clay. This is a little bit of blue Fimo mixed with translucent Sculpey. It loses most of its translucency, but it makes a prettier color than just mixing it with white. I press it into the setting and make it as round as I can. Then I bake it in the setting to be sure it'll still fit after it's baked. It pops right out, then it's time for finishing work. I start with 100 grit sandpaper, working out the uneven places in the surface. Then I go to 300 grit to smooth out some of the sanding marks. This takes about 5 minutes. Afterward, it's time to make it pretty again by wet sanding with 600 grit sandpaper. This looks pretty good. While I was making stuff with clay, I went ahead and made a little oval to make her pendant too. It's pretty smooth, so I wet sand it to get the dust out of the surface. This is way too thick to use for a doll pendant though, so I cut it in half, paring the back away a little at a time. Be careful with razors. They're really dangerous and I should probably be wearing gloves. After I like the thickness, I rub the cabochon on a piece of sandpaper to even out the back, then wet sand it to get rid of the marks. I draw a rough sketch of the 7-pointed star on the front of the stone with a watercolor pencil. Then I go over it with acrylic paint mixed with pearl powder. After the acrylic paint is dry, I can wash this to get rid of the rough pencil guidelines underneath. Now I have to make a setting for the pendant, since I couldn't find any settings small enough. I use a string to measure the pendant, adding a bit at the top for wire working. I cut 3 pieces, 2 the length of the string and 1 a bit longer. With the longer wire, I bend it in a few places to create prongs that will hold the stone. 2 for the bottom, 2 for the top. Once the prongs are made, I stack the 3 wires up and then use a piece of thinner half-round wire to wrap all 3 together. This takes quite a while, just twisting around and around and around. Once it's all wrapped, I bend the frame around a marker to get started, then shape it a little at a time with pliers. I bend the prongs outward for now to make sure the stone doesn't get stuck. Using some of the extra wire at the top, I twist a loop for the chain to go through. Then I cut the extra wires, leaving just one to wrap around the loops and hold them in place. Now it's just a matter of adjusting the roundness until the pendant fits nicely. Then I bend the prongs inward, and there we go. I never know how in-depth to go with some projects, so if you're interested in seeing more detailed guides for things like the wire working, let me know. I cut a chain and put clasps on the end, then her pendant is ready. So all that's left is finishing the belt. I glue the stone into the setting and put some gloss on it. Then I gather the belt a bit and sew the setting in place on both sides. The belt is just a piece of fabric left over from the base layer of her dress. the gap behind the setting is perfect for sliding the other end of the belt through. Now all her accessories are done. Belt, necklace, and some hairpins for a new wig I think I might make for her. That's all for today though. Thanks for joining me again. Bye.